was.
Folks, it is Tuesday night here in Tampa, Florida, and where you are around the world, including overseas, but some places overseas. It's already Wednesday for the most part. So if you're watching us from overseas, as you guys know, we are internationally heard and sound thanks to broadstsouth.com. And of course, Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. Also on AMP Radio, yes, from Amazon. So you guys can listen to us right through AMP Radio as well. And you can view us over on YouTube. So many different ways you can view and watch the show. But there are certain times, as you guys can see on the screen there, one person in particular I'll be speaking to tonight and his co-host, Luther Riley. You guys can tune in as they get ready to launch it this Saturday. And I am completely honored to be able to say that because Ron Briscoe is with me tonight. And you guys can see on Holden Court, the podcast, and you guys can go to holdencourt.com so you guys can watch and listen to the show live. And not only that, it's just exciting because if you guys don't have your popcorn ready, you are in for a treat. Because when I got to speak with Ron last week for the first time, I had so much fun that we did it again last night and we're doing it again tonight. And not only that, this may turn out to be a series because I'm telling you that 1 hour tonight is not enough for all the stories that Mr. Briscoe has for you because I'm just in delight and become an ultra fan super quick and Uber fan for that matter. And sometimes you have to use a megaphone to introduce people because that's just the way it sounds. But nonetheless, it is Ron Briscoe with me here, episode 196. And I tell you this much, as we get closer and closer to episode 200, man, you talk about the lineup of guests that we've had as of late, it's going to be hard to top this guest here. So we're going to be talking about how MJ came around to Nike, possibly Kobe. I don't know, some Kevin Durant. There are so many different stories that we're about to hear tonight. I hope you guys are just as much entertained as I have been just listening to Mr. Briscoe and his stories. So with that all being said, I welcome you tonight to Broad Street South. Of course, you again listen to us on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. And not only that, to start off the evening, at least with the first segment of the show, thanks to penguinpretzels.com. If you guys want to order, just go on penguinpretzels.com. You can visit them over on Little Road, the shop to go. Place your order online, pick them up, and you guys will be ready to go. Penguinpretzels.com. Nick, Susie, and the rest of the gang, those guys will treat you just phenomenally. Great tasting pretzels, and this guy might have something to do with it as well. So with that all being said, let's get the show on the road. We welcome you tonight here on a Tuesday evening, early night at 8 o'clock. I'm Angel Martinez, and welcome to Broad Street South. Evening, I will say now, again, let me put this into right perspective here. It is rare that we talk about like world famous cheesesteaks, world famous pizzas, world famous everything. Tonight, Mr. World Famous joins us himself, Mr. Briscoe. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Hey, Angel, man. Hey, it sure is a privilege and an honor to be on your 102.9 The Game sports show. And man, I'm ready to see what you have to ask me and see what I can dish out and see what the listeners can learn from tonight's show with me on board.
Well, it'll definitely be a lot to learn because, again, we've had so much fun in the past couple of days just communicating back and forth and talking shop. I mean, it's so great because it's rare that you get someone that knows between the game of basketball, knowing how an agency works, knowing what it takes to put marketing together, to be able to get caliber players. As you have said to me, which we're going to share tonight with everybody else as well, is how you've been able to see the future before Nike saw the future. And you were able to tell people this guy's going to go in the first round. So I'm going to start off first of all. And as much as I want to get into all the players, and by the way, for those who are listening in tonight, this will probably turn out to be a 4-part series and probably longer than that because tonight you guys will be able to have the ability to listen in tonight. If next week, if everything goes well, there'll be a time where you guys will be able to call in and ask any questions that you guys would like. So tonight is more on the listening end. Next week, with all hopes and probabilities that we can put together, and we'll also review the first podcast you guys will launch with you and Mr. Riley. So this
Mhm.
evening, to start off, I'm going to go way back before Nike. So I want to start off on your career as it started to lead up to where you wanted to be. How, in a young age, did you know exactly where you're going to become world famous at many years before your time?
Well, that's a great question, Angel. And it all started with me because I'm from basketball country. I'm born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky, raised, you know, and I grew up with a lot of guys that were real tremendous athletes. And, I have a book coming out. It's going to talk about 10 guys that I grew up with that all went on to play in the pro sports. So I don't know how many guys have grew up with guys like that. One may have been a pro basketball player, baseball player, football player, ran track or something. But anyway, I grew up in that type of atmosphere, and I was a pretty good basketball player back in the day. I played at Lafayette High School, and then I went to college down at in Louisiana, where I live in Lafayette at the University of Southwestern Louisiana. Jim Hatfield was the head coach there. Met some really good players. As a matter of fact, we talked about a guy who was my teammate that played for the 76ers, Andrew Toney. So, uh, being a basketball player, coming from a basketball state, there was this guy who was a manager on our basketball team by the name of Dwayne Olinger. And he and I got together, and he really liked, like he said, man, I really like the way you play. He said, but just kind of tell me what you look for when you're defending a player and what you look for when the guy's guarding you. So I kind of broke it down to him, and he was like, man, you'd be really good, because I like the way you break down people and you see things and you can get by people and you lay it up and or you can shoot it and things like that. So we got to know each other, and he was the guy who first introduced me to a guy who's been my mentor, a guy I can say that I learned a whole lot from in the name of George Raveling. He was the first guy to introduce me to George Raveling, but he didn't introduce me to him in person. He introduced me to him on a tape, a cassette tape player. And I listened to that cassette, and it really moved me and got me to thinking, like, hey, I need to meet this guy. Well, it just so happened that when I got out of school, I wanted to go into coaching, but of course they had a bunch of knucklehead guys. So I was like, man, I can't do that. I'm gonna kill somebody's kid. So I got a job. I got a job with an oil company where I went off in the Gulf of Mexico, and I worked 7 on and 7 off. And they gave me time to come back and do some things with basketball, play with some guys. And I saw several guys in the city of Lafayette that I wanted to help. So to make a long story short, I got with my buddy Dwayne, and I was like, "Hey, Dwayne, man, you was talking to me about doing this scouting stuff. I just want to help some guys right here in Lafayette." He said, "You can't just do that." He said, "You got to help the whole state. You got to do the whole state." So I was like, "The whole state," and I was like, "Man, I don't know if I can do that." But hey, it was an opportunity. I was the first black guy that had a scouting service in the South, and I just took off with it. And just so happened, and after 5 years, I became really good at it. And a good friend of mine who was assistant coach at Rice University, because Rice was the first college program that took my scouting service. My good buddy Willis Wilson asked me one day, called me up on the phone and said, "Hey, Ron, can you do 5 more states?" I said, "Willis, 5 more states?" He said, "Man, I'm going to tell you, man, it's going to help you." So I did 5 more states. And then after that, I added 5 more. So I changed my name for my service from the Louisiana High School Basketball Report and Scouting Service to the Southeast Regional Basketball Report. And along with that, I had another publication that I called it Almighty Gossip Line. And that publication was mainly for fans to hear the rumors and the gossip and to understand where these players were going. I had more Kentucky fans than anybody. And it just kind of gave you a capsule of what the guy was like, how he could play, where he was going, just little tidbits on events that were going on and my rankings and things like that. But anyway, it grew. And after I received 10 years up under my belt, the McDonald's committee came calling on me. They said, hey, we want you to be part of us because we need a guy like you that has a good eye and that can select McDonald All Americans. Okay, okay. Then Nike came calling. They wanted me to, even though I was doing stuff for Nike, I wasn't a full time employee. And then they said, hey, we want you to work for us. Okay. Then USA Basketball came calling. And then Gatorade came calling. And then the NBA Players Association came calling. And some other affiliates came calling, because they just like once they learn about a certain committee that wants you, everybody wants you.
Right.
So here I am juggling all these committees and doing all these things and setting up all these teams to play in these Christmas tournaments and holiday tournaments and going to all these different AAU events. Or I met Boo Williams, who was one of the top guys. Met Bobby Dye, who was the president of the AAU. Don Dollar, who ran everything in Georgia. Lewis Stout, who ran everything in Kentucky, and all these guys, just came forward because when they had a national event, those were the guys who were the commissioners that were, giving out different awards to all these national teams. So I got to know all those guys, and I just, it just kept building, and kept building with the college coaches, kept building with the high school coaches, kept building with the fans, and then Nike said, "Hey, we want you to be the first guy in our grassroots department," which we changed maybe after 5 or 6 years. We changed the name to the Elite Youth Basketball Department because everybody during that time was looking at Nike because we was changing so much and doing so much and getting so many players. Everybody wanted to be like, man, what are these guys doing over here? They getting this number one draft pick, they getting that number one draft pick. But God blessed me with an eye for talent, an eye for going out and looking at basketball, and I just had a knack for just seeing a guy that could play and what he could do on the basketball court. And if he really wasn't a guy that was complete, I would just sit down and say, this guy's young, he's gonna grow, he's gonna be a guy that's gonna get to where he needs to go. And I'm talking about some guys that I saw, as we talked before, Angel, that were in the 8th grade and 9th grade, guys that I saw early, because we didn't have like the Nike, what we call the Nike Hoop Jamboree, which is now called the Nike Top 100 Camp for 8th graders and 9th graders. George Raveling and Don Crenshaw, who are two valuable guys, like I said, in my life, they, along with me and Glenn Wilkes Sr., helped put that camp together because at the Nike All American camp, it was usually guys that was in the senior class and the junior class that a lot of coaches looked at. They didn't look for young players, but the young players were getting better. And a lot of the older players were complaining because, oh, this young guy is not that good and that good. So we decided to develop a camp to get those guys to come to, and we had about 100 guys that came to, and those guys really had to be good because George was the director at that time, and he didn't mess around. He would tell me like, Briscoe, look, don't waste my time. Don't go out there looking for guys and not come back with a guy that was good. So he put a lot of pressure on me, and was fortunate to come back with some guys and other guys on staff. And there's another guy I want to mention that really helped me out during my first time working at Nike. His name is Keith Brown. Keith Brown, I call him KB. He really helped me out a lot. He was the guy who hired me for Nike. Up to Georgia and talked to him, and he was the guy that brought me in. He was the guy that was running the department. It was for a while there was just me and him. because there was a lot of other guys that were just coming around and asking, "How did you do this? How did you, start your business? And what are you looking for?" So it was a couple of more guys that were always around me at different events and showing up and things like that that we brought aboard. But some of the players that I had an opportunity to be around and that I knew there was going to be uh, high draft picks when they was in eighth and ninth grade. DeMarcus Cousins, Alpha Amino was another one. Tracy McGrady, he was another one that was really good. I knew Dwight Howard was going to be good. I knew Greg Monroe was going to be an excellent player. I knew Harrison Baum was going to be, off the chain, and I could go on and name more and more and more, but I don't want to take up a lot of time because I got some more stories later on to say. But that's just enough of the guys, you know, that I saw at that early moment. And let me not forget, even though I wasn't a guy that he was under my wing, but Kevin Garnett was another guy. Vince Carter was another guy, and Ronnie Fields, and I can just go on and on and on. Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson, and just a bunch of great players, man. That a lot of them came out of high school, and a lot of them did a lot of things.
Well, I would say this much because when you started telling me how you had the eye for talent, and for people to see up there on the screen, those who cannot see on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game, right now it's a picture with Ron Briscoe and Vince Carter. And it's some of his friends that he has up there. And it's funny because, Ron, you just mentioned it casually. Like, there's the one thing I will say I absolutely love about Mr. Briscoe is there's no bragging. It's just talk
No,
about the people that he's come across, how many people, and the reason why he became world famous. And he's going to let you guys know how he ended up getting that name as well. But it's amazing to me with the eye that you had for talent, which is incredible because, we as fans, we could be armchair quarterbacks, we could be, the eighth man out. You can call it whatever you want to, but it's completely different when you look around and you turn and you're wondering, like, okay, how does a person have so much great talent that they're able to see the future before anyone else can see it? So, what I would like to know is how did Nike ever think, okay, Ron, I understand who you're talking about. And yes, maybe you know exactly what you're saying, but did they ever have, like, and I don't want to say like bad doubts because obviously there was nothing bad, but did they ever have doubts and just say, I don't know, I don't think that guy's going in the first round?
of course, there was guys on staff that would always tell me that, and I would tell them, like, man, look, man, I was a senior guy and I had been doing it a long time, and hey, you have your opinion, but what came out in the end results, and they will look at me. I was like, I told you the guy was going to be a pro. And one guy that comes to mind that we really had a hard problem with the staff was a guy who just won an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets, and his name is Kentavious Caldwell Polk. Well, back then he didn't have the Polk on the end of his name. He was a guy that was in the eighth grade and was a good friend of mine's who was trying to get his Georgia Blazer team under Nike sponsorship. And we wound up, putting them under Nike sponsorship. Herman Porter was the guy's name. And Herman met me because he heard about me through a guy out of Atlanta. Uh, and he was like, man, I heard a lot about you. My man tells me you're the guy. So he says, look, I want you to go see this player. So we go down to Georgia, down to a place in Greenville, Georgia, which is in no man's land. Population 2,000.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This kid is in the eighth grade, and I go in the gym, talk to his coach. I sat in the stands, and Herman introduced me. Said, hey, this is Ron Briscoe. He's with Nike. He came to see Kentavious. And I came in old gym, old style gym with the stage. You don't see that anymore. That's old. And the first time I saw him play, the first thing I thought about was Andrew Toney. I said, this guy shoots
Mhm.
just like Andrew Toney. He reminded me of Andrew Toney. And at that time, he was about maybe 6 foot. And Kentavious right now is about 6'5", 6'6". He grew a lot. But I had the hardest time trying to convince guys on staff that this guy was going to be a pro. It just got lucky that uh, a guy dropped out doing one of the skills academy position, and Kentavious got in, and he did his thing. Um, People fail to know that Kentavious was a McDonald All-American, went to Georgia for 2 years, and then he left. And that's when he got the poke on his name because his daddy came back into his life during that time. And I just knew he was going to be a star. I mean, this guy averaged like 30 points a game as a senior, and being from that small town, he also played football. And the other thing about Kentavious that I want people to know is that here's a guy who went to school every day, and they had a prison about a mile down the road that when the kids walked outside, they could see that prison, and it would remind them like, hey, if you got in trouble, that's where you was going. So he was a great kid, didn't get in any trouble, and went to Georgia. He was a first round pick, the eighth player in the first round, went to the Detroit Pistons. And I had to call all those doubters up and tell them I told you that guy was going to be a first round pick. And he was one of the many. Harrison Barnes is another guy that I have a great story with that came in. He was in the ninth grade, a guy who I saw, and we invited him in camp at the last moment. It was to the point to where he didn't have all his paperwork together to get in the dorm with the rest of the players. So Harrison stayed in the hotel where we were staying in. And the guys on staff were looking and say, like, who is that guy right there? Who's that guy with the ball? I said, y'all don't know who that guy is, huh? And I was talking to Harrison. I said, I'm not going to tell him your name until we get over to the gym. So we get over to the gym. He's over there. And they kept saying, who's that guy right there? I said, that's Harrison Barnes, y'all. And they was like, Harrison Barnes. They didn't know who he was.
Right.
And so he participates in the Nike Hoop Jamboree, and he comes out as the MVP of the camp. So he goes on and goes into the Skills Academy, does very well. Of course, he goes to Carolina, he comes out, he's a first round pick, and everything, the rest is history. So that's just some of the guys, that I've seen play. Of course, I got Tracy McGrady stories, how Tracy McGrady was how we found him when he was in the ninth grade, and how his high school coach named Joel Hopkins, who was a good friend of mine, and that I had been knowing like 3 or 4 years before he got with Tracy, and how all that went down, and how he went with Tracy and the rest of the guys to start Mount Zion Christian Academy in Durham, North Carolina. And it's a heck of a story because, without Tracy McGrady going to that school, I don't think Joel would have had the school. But he just happened to have a guy that was from Florida who went to North Carolina to go to school, and it was a Christian school. So it's just one of those many stories, that I can share with the listeners, and I'm pretty sure they'll like that. And the Greg Monroe story, how he was a guy that down in New Orleans and on the West Bank, and how his story went with his AAU coach and another coach named Derek Jones, who coached him in AAU ball. And Derek Jones is a head coach. He just won a state championship at Catholic High School out of Baton Rouge, and a guy I've been knowing ever since he played high school because he was a great high school player. And then, like I said, there's so many coaches that I know now that are coaching, and there's some of them that are Division I coaches, that I've seen play in high school, that I've seen in the ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and now they head coaches, and it's just amazing, how it goes by and how things change uh, when you get the chance to see these guys, continue to develop their careers and continue to do well.
Yeah, listen, it's incredible because again, you don't think about, the names that you had mentioned. who's to say that these guys, if they didn't make it big, what could have happened in their careers? And it's just amazing to me from eighth and ninth grade that you knew that talent. And it's tough because sometimes, we hear about guys, and you might see it locally in Philly. A lot of times we would see it on the local stations about, you might have a basketball phenom when he was in eighth grade, but then he got to 10th grade. Don't know what happened. Maybe the wheels fell off. Things happen, and with some athletes. And then, of course, we have Kobe Bryant, who was from the county, obviously out there in Montgomery County. So he always referenced that he wasn't from Philly, but he got most of the references because he loved to play basketball. The guys brought him into Philadelphia to show him what it was to actually, to play ball and play street ball and make him just better. And that he did talk about before his passing. God bless him. But
Hmm.
he talked about it a lot. How things went differently for him, and where the people were upset because they wanted him to say that Kobe was from Philly, and he kept saying, "No, I'm not." And it took a while for people to understand and relate the reason why. It is just it's one of those things in life that it makes a reference, and people just don't know and understand the capacity. Someone like Kobe Bryant to make that reference saying that, I'm not from a particular city. I went to a school in Montgomery County. That's where I'm from. That's where I got drafted from straight out of high school. And it's
Hmm.
amazing to me because you would think as MJ obviously came through, and for those who didn't get to see the special on Netflix, as far as the movie with Air, that Nike
Hmm.
had taken the time to make sure that they brought in Michael Jordan, had talked about him, had wanted to make sure that he, you know, chased away from Adidas and everybody else, and the reason why all that came about. And then you guys had to go seek the next person after Michael Jordan. But if it wasn't for his mom and being persistent and asking Michael,
Hmm.
to come by, listen to see what's going on. Obviously, the brand that continues to be Michael Jordan brand for Nike. I mean, all these things that happens in life, there's reasons for it to happen. So I want to go back to MJ here for a second. But if Michael Jordan, and we in the movie, it's one thing the way it was portrayed, but would have been true that if Michael Jordan wouldn't have been signed by Nike, would that department actually have gone away?
You know what? That's a great question. And it's hard for me to say because they had so many guys that were already in the department. You had Moses Malone that was, and you had the Iceman that was already there. You had just guys like that were already in there, and that they could made that featured guy. But when MJ came along, it's funny. It's funny because you don't have a Moses Malone building out there, you don't have an Iceman building out there, George Gervin I'm talking about, but you do have a Michael Jordan building out there, and that's what our basketball headquarters was in the Jordan building. Every time I went out there, may have been every 3 months that we had to show up and have a meeting, or we had a special meeting. That's where we ended was the Michael Jordan building, and the way that Nike worked is that an athlete had to make so much money, so much revenue for them to build a building after them. They have the new LeBron building out there now. They have the Tiger Woods building out there that we've been in many times out there during his time, his early days. Uh, so they have a lot of buildings out there named after their great athletes, and they also, when you go on campus, they have plaques on the outside of the different buildings on the walkway as you walk into the different buildings of the athletes with a description of who they are and what college they played in, and just different things that kind of would just enlighten you to stop and go like, this is a little history right here. It's almost like a wall of fame that you walk by on the Nike campus, which is really good. And I tell you what, it's just amazing of how much information they have, how much history they have out there, and how many buildings they have out there with the players. May it be baseball, may it be soccer, may it be baseball, soccer, basketball. Not many football players, but a lot of basketball, soccer, and other sports. Let me put it that way. But Nike is phenomenal. It's a great place to be. It's a place where you can go where you have several soccer fields, several baseball fields. You got a track that goes around the facility that people can run on. It's just an amazing complex, and every time I went out there, I enjoyed myself and I was at ease, and it was just fantastic going out there and having meetings and talking about the strategies of the players that we had uh, on board. And we had what we call our pro department out there at Nike, and we called them the SEAL team, just like the SEALs. You know, it was very special group of guys. And a couple of guys are now, general managers in the NBA. Well, one guy to talk about is Nico Harrison. Nico Harrison is now the general manager for the Dallas Maverick. He was Lynn Merritt's right hand man for a long time, and Lynn Merritt is the guy that became the director of the department, and he became the vice president because he got LeBron James. But he was the guy that was the guy that told us in a meeting. I remember this. He said, "Look, when LeBron's having an event now, I want you guys to tell me where he's going to be so I can be there." As a matter of fact, Lynn Merritt got an apartment in Akron, Ohio, where LeBron lived during his senior year of high school, so he could make sure that he could go to LeBron's games. And wherever LeBron went, Lynn was there. Even though we had relationships with LeBron, he said, "You guys are not going to be the guys that's going to mess this up. So Phil Knight can come back and tell me, well, what happened? How'd y'all mess this up?" Lynn said, "I'm taking over. I'm running this." And Lynn did. He ran it from the time LeBron got under Nike's umbrella with the help of his guy, Maverick Carter. And it went on. And then Lynn took over and until LeBron, was settled in the NBA, because almost every game that LeBron played in his rookie year, Lynn Murray was in the arena watching him along with his mom. And if anything came up, Lynn was there to take care of it. So I owe Lynn Merritt a whole lot of gratitude for being the guy that really took care of LeBron and kind of told us to kind of get out of the way. He's mine. He's the chosen one. He's the next one. Because we would sit down and say, like, well, when Jordan leaves, who are we going to get? And that's when we started focusing in on different guys to come in. And LeBron was, by far, we took a look at him. He has the size, he had the body for a young kid. And here's a kid in junior high school. He's got a body like a grown ass man. So we look at him and go like, hey, he can take the pounding in the NBA. A lot of people don't know that LeBron James writes with his left hand and he shoots with his right hand and throws the ball with his left hand. So he's ambidextrous,
Right.
and that's something special to know about players. And I look for that in a lot of players. Greg Monroe was the same way; he was ambidextrous. A lot of people didn't know Larry Bird was the same way. Larry Bird would write with his left hand, but he shot with his right hand. And if you remember, there was one game where Larry Bird shot all free throws in the game with his left hand.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that may not know because he was ambidextrous. So LeBron is that type of person, and he's another guy that's like Michael, who I mentioned to you. He has that genius type of thinking. He's very mature for his age. A guy who never got in trouble, and he just was LeBron. He just was himself, and he was always faithful to his friends that he grew up with in Akron. That's a big thing that I liked about him too. And Rich Paul, which is now his man, excuse me, not his agent, was a guy that I met, and we just call him Shorty Rich
Right.
because Rich Paul is really short. So we call him Shorty Rich. Hey, Shorty Rich, what's going on? And he would always show up, not knowing that one day he was going to be LeBron's agent or he was going to be an agent for a lot of these guys. So, Rich Paul is a really good guy. And LeBron, like I said, he's really faithful to the guys that he grew up in Akron. And that means a lot. And, you know, Kobe Bryant, getting back to Kobe Bryant's dad, Jelly Bean Bryant, was a teammate of Andrew Toney's at Philadelphia, if you can remember. So I met Jelly Bean. I met the Sixers team. I remember one time I was going to Houston. I brought a bunch of young kids. I said, hey, this guy right here, we was college teammate. He plays for the 76ers. And Andrew said, yeah, man, bring him on down. I'm going to introduce him to all the players. So we get down to Houston and he introduces him to Dr. J and Jelly Bean and Harvey Catchings and, was it Steve Young? No, his name wasn't Steve Young. What was that big guy? The guy, I know his name was Steve. I can't think of his name right now. But he introduced us to all the players on the team, Mo Cheeks and all of those guys, Bobby Jones. So the kids were kind of like blown away because they were young kids, and I wanted them to kind of get a feel of what it's like, to meet guys like that because their ambition was to be not only real good high school players, but really good college players. And hopefully one of them would have made it to the pros. But I just wanted them to see what that experience was like and to offer them that opportunity. So, Kobe Bryant was a guy that I really didn't know Kobe that well, to tell you the truth, when he was, because he wasn't with Nike and Kobe was with Adidas. And when we went up to LeBron, Kobe's contract was running out. So we really didn't mess with guys who had contracts, but the pro guys could because they could talk to their agents and go like, okay, you guys' contract getting ready to run out. What y'all going to do? And it just so happened, Kobe made that change. But I think he made it a little bit too late because we had already had LeBron in the mix.
Right.
And we already had a lot of things planned for LeBron. So, Kobe came along and we really didn't pay priority to Kobe. And Kobe slowly started changing a lot of people's minds. And the guy that took care of Kobe is Nico Harrison. Nico Harrison, like I say, he's now the general manager for the Dallas Maverick. He did the same thing Lynn Murray did with LeBron James. Wherever Kobe Bryant went, Nico was there. As a matter of fact, when the helicopter went down, I thought Nico was on the helicopter with Kobe because he had went everywhere with him, and I found out he wasn't. But it was just it was just one of those things that Nico wasn't with him during that time because he was with Kobe almost everywhere he went. Nico was there. So it's stories like that a lot of the listeners they don't know about, but hopefully if they have some questions they want to ask, they can shoot them into you and ask some questions about different players because we got a whole host of guys, man, that I've been in touch with, and that I have to learn, Kendrick Perkins of the world. And I tell a lot of people this. I said, how many people and how many states do you know that went from high school straight to the NBA? I just happen to know a lot of the guys that went straight from the NBA. I know that Georgia had a lot of them. Florida had a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Texas had a lot of them. Illinois had a lot of them. And California had a lot of them. That's the top lot of the players to come straight out of high school. So you're talking about when you come to Florida, you're talking about Tracy McGrady, Amari Stoudemire, which was another one of our guys that we got on young. You got Daryl Dawkins, who came out of there really young. So, that's just some of the guys
We lost Ronnie's feed here for a second. He'll be back momentarily.
in high school.
There it is. You're back.
Huh?
You're back. It cut out for a second, but now you're back with us.
Oh, okay.
But let me ask you this much, and I think so. Not that I'm gonna word it cautiously here because it's something that I think it's almost because you're talking about two major icons here. And for those of you who are tuning in tonight, I have Ron Briscoe with me telling us stories that he could not tell us before, but now that he's done with his one side of his career, now getting ready to start his other side of career with the podcast Holding Court. And you guys can tune in Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Visit hold the letter N court.com so you guys can view the show as well. But if you're listening in on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the game, we do appreciate it, as well as over on AMP Radio. It, it's it's probably one of those tough things. But when you think about Kobe Bryant and Michael Jackson, and you think about two major icons,
Mhm.
I'm wondering, I think the impact of Kobe may have been just a little bit bigger than Michael Jackson, because when that came through, it was in the middle of the afternoon, and a lot of people couldn't believe, like they were thinking, like, no, it can't be true. That's not right, And in today's day and age, because you just don't know, things do happen, and through social media, a lot of times things can leak out. But when Kobe passed away, because I remember my fiance telling me we're in the garage, we're doing stuff, and she
Mhm.
told me, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "No, it's Kobe passed away." And it was just, he did so much in his community, and everybody knows, he didn't make a good choice early on, but he right his wrong. And Kobe did a
Mhm.
lot within, the LA community. He even did things back, in Montgomery County. Those who were impacted by Kobe Bryant, I mean, it was just legendary status. I don't like how the photos were leaked. I thought that was completely
Yeah.
insensitive for them to
Mhm.
do something like that. But to you, Ron, is it bigger with Kobe's passing than MJ's, than Michael Jackson, or is it just about the same?
I think it's just about the same. I mean, two mega stars, and both of them had the influence of a lot of people, and both of them, were icons back then.
Mhm.
Wherever they did, people wanted to be with them, wanted to be around them, wanted to see them, wanted to be a part of what they were doing. So I would say both of them were well, in my opinion, about the same. I mean, their legacy goes on and never be forgotten. The things that Kobe did on the court and the things that Michael did on the stage, were incredible. Guy scoring 80 points and guy doing the moonwalk. And it's just, it's just talent. As I say, talent on loan from God, man, that one day you got to give that gift back to them. And they left something so people can remember, and that people can look forward to and say, man, I know so many Kobe Bryant fans, and so many people that say, and so many people that named their kid after Kobe. I got one of my college teammates that named his kid after Kobe. His name is Kobe. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people that name their kids after Kobe, and there's a lot of kids that out there that see Michael Jackson and then wanted to be an entertainer like him, wanted to be a singer like him on stage, and be able to dance like him, and just do a lot of things. It's a gift, man, and you know. It's just great to be able to see those guys, and we miss them a lot.
Yeah, we do. That's for sure. And this is why I say to everyone that this may not be just a one night, because you guys can see 43 minutes have passed by, and it passed by so quick because the stories, and this is not even the tip of the iceberg. This
Oh
just
no.
goes to show you how much that Ron has to share with everybody. And it's so much fun because we were on the phone for an hour and 40 minutes the first time around, and we had so much fun just going back and forth. And I'm listening to what's going on. So, again, if you guys are just joining me, Ron Briscoe with me tonight, episode 196, of course, right here on broadstsouth.com. You guys can listen in also on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. And I think also Tampa Joe's in this next segment. Tampa Joe's at 9316 Anderson Road in beautiful Tampa, Florida, right next to the airport. So if you guys are coming in, special for your Eagles fans, as Mike Klein had put a message up there earlier on, you guys are Eagles fans, come down to Tampa Joe's because you guys know where all the action is during the NFL season. But amazing to me because you look again at Michael Jordan, and it's a shame also the passing of his father because he meant so much to him. But again,
Mhm.
you go back to the mom. You can't take away from what mom wanted and what she wanted from Michael to make sure he was set up for the future. And then what Nike thought, man, as far as owning the team, he had to sell it. But, it's just with MJ stories, I mean, we can just go on forever and ever
Mhm.
and ever. And obviously, they had the 5-part series on ESPN, which was really interesting to hear how that came about. The only thing to me, though, Ron, is that drives me a little bit nuts is why all of a sudden Scottie Pippen decided he wanted to go against the grain. That to me makes no sense.
You know what? I asked myself that question too, and I scratched my head about that. What happened to Scotty? Of all the things that him and Jordan did together. And I don't know if you know this, and probably you do. Michael Jordan's son Marcus is going to is engaged to Scottie Pippen's ex-wife.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
I
know if
did
you
hear
knew that.
about that.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on, but anyway, I was surprised to hear that, and because I know Marcus and Jeffrey really well, but I was surprised to hear that. But you're right, I don't know what happened with Scotty. I mean, him and Michael played together and did a lot of things together. And one thing about Scotty and Michael, I never did see Scottie Pippen around Michael a lot during the off season. Michael had a lot of guys that was around him, but Scotty was one of the guys that really didn't show up in different places with him, and you could kind of tell, like they wasn't really buddy bud, but they were like buddy bud teammates, uh, because they didn't hang out. They didn't hang out a lot. My guy, who is DeJuan Wagner's stepfather. I don't know if you know Wild Wild West. Huh? You know West?
It
You
sounds
heard
very
of
familiar.
Wild Wild West, from Campton, New Jersey? Uh, and DeJuan Wagner came along. He really got into DeJuan Wagner's life, and he really got you know to know him. He had a great gift, and he was always at LeBron James's games with Lynn Merritt, and Lynn really liked him, and Michael really liked Wes a lot, and Wes was hanging out with Michael a lot. I know that. I remember one time we was in Indianapolis, and we was in Jermaine O'Neal's club, and we really had a good time. And Wes was there, and I was there. Michael was there, and of course, Michael has to have the area chained off, to where nobody could get close to him. So we was having a good time at his place, and Wes was he was something else. But he always showed up in different places. Like I was like, Wes, you here? He got like, yeah, man, I got some business to take care of. Man, leave me alone, Briscoe. Leave me alone. you know. But it was fun. I mean, some of the guys we met and the things we did, and like I said, Michael, in my opinion, his mama was very, very gifted, a very, very smart business lady. Uh, I've always told people Michael Jordan's a genius. I mean, just the things that he could do and how he did things. Very articulate and very smart. And, you know, uh, he was the type of guy that could walk in a place and scope out the room real quick. And he knew all the exit doors were. If he needed to get out, he knew how to get out. And he always had his bodyguards around him, some of his old buddies from the Chicago Police Department and things like that. I had an opportunity to meet all those guys and hang out. And I think some of the things that I really enjoyed doing with Michael was being at his flight school camp and hanging out with him and going to a place called O'Malley's out in Santa Barbara, California. And it's a little, I guess what people would call a hole in the wall. But it
Uh-huh.
was a really nice place, but it had a bar in it. And Michael would get behind the bar after we finished at the camp and after he finished playing, he get behind the bar and he would serve drinks to people. And that little place was packed and people would just be waiting, in a line outside, to get in to see Mike and to be able to come in and just hang out and have a good time. And it was phenomenal because there was a lot of guys who used to come out to Santa Barbara to Michael's camp, a lot of pro guys and a lot of college guys. And they used to play with Michael after we would finish camp about 5 or 6 o'clock. They would play. And I always refereed the games. So like every time Michael wanted to play, I would referee the games. It would mostly be Kevin Eastman and I would referee the games. And then we had a couple of more guys that took over, but we enjoyed doing that. And then when we got through, we went over there. And Michael be smoking his big cigar back in the back, playing cards and having fun with some of his buddies that he had played golf with early that morning before he came to camp. you know, So it was fun, and then having the opportunity to hang out with Mike in Las Vegas at his senior camp, where guys came in and they played $25,000 a head, and it was awesome to be at that event, hanging out in Vegas at the Mirage Hotel and seeing all those guys, that had all this money coming in to, get these big bags of Jordan gear and a ring at the banquet and having a big old banquet. And he would invite like, Bill Walton and all these different Doc Rivers and guys that would come and talk and Hall of Famers, would be the coaches. Jim Boeheim would be out there, and it would just be spectacular to see all these coaches that were Hall of Famers out there to be coaching these guys. Uh, it would just be fun. I had a great time doing that with Mike too. So it was just phenomenal, man. Had a great time.
I could just imagine being within the same vicinity, I would say, of Michael Jordan, because I would now, to me, and I know different generations, they see as LeBron James as the greatest of all time. For me personally, it's Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time. I would have
Of
loved to
course.
see them playing, one-on-one, because everybody's been dying to see it. I know they had a virtual reality session of where they thought,
Uh-huh.
that they played the games, they came out even, but I would love to see that game. Now, it could be the same way. It could be now LeBron versus Bronny at one point. They know who's going to be the greatest of all time there, because as
Yeah.
he's coming through the ranks. But Michael Jordan is he's I think because he came in at a time, and you and I talked about this off air, but
Uh-huh.
when it comes to music and athletes, right? There's at different stages of our lives, certain athletes come across when things are at its lowest, and they start bringing that uprising with them. And you look at the Chicago Bulls. Cliff Livingston, by the way, a good friend of mine who was also the
Okay.
part of the NBA Finals, and obviously an NBA champ. But you look at at guys like that, at times when they made that run. My fiance, who's originally from the Illinois area, not that far away from Chicago, I mean, I would imagine being a fan during that era and just being in that area and just thinking, when are we ever going to lose again? We're never going to lose another championship again. But it goes to show you how precious it is, because Michael Jordan had talked about it for years, that you enjoy the moment and you keep building, you keep getting better. And when guys started falling apart when they were running their fourth NBA championship, it was like, don't take this for granted, because you never know when you're going to be back there. And you look at the Chicago Bulls now and how long it's been since they won an
Uh-huh.
NBA championship. No different than my Sixers, because I don't know when in my lifetime. 83 is many moons ago, many, many
Many
moons
moons
ago,
ago.
since
Mhm.
they've won. But it goes to show you how Michael Jordan, the people he's come across. And you always hear stories. We heard stories about him and Juanita and how things didn't work out too well. But everybody, at one point in our lives, sure, we will love to live a positive life from here to forever. We would like to be with the person we love and been with forever. But things happen, and
Mhm.
life happens, unfortunately. But I will say, for as many people as he talked to, the kids especially, Michael Jordan he's just done so many things in life and continues to do so. It hasn't stopped. No different than LeBron James. I mean, he's gone back to Akron, Ohio. I mean, he made a school for those who couldn't afford to go, and so these guys, they know how to give back and how to make sure they never forget, the people who helped them along the way. And that's one thing I've always said is stable here on the show, that I never forget those who've helped and come on and helped along the way. But Michael Jordan, and one good thing I remember about him as well is that he had one session with Gatorade. And when Gatorade first came out, their one slogan was, "Is it in you?" And I remember when Michael Jordan, they must have done what they thought was over 100 takes, because they always said, "Okay, Michael, just say your line, and then at the very end, it's going to be, is it in you?" And he would say what he had to say about Gatorade, and it was, is it in you? Is it in you? Is it? And he couldn't, those four words, he just couldn't get out right the way they wanted to. And then eventually, I believe from what they did was they cut the pieces together to make it sound like he can actually say the end slogan, the Gatorade. But I could imagine as athletes, the tough part is, and we have a couple minutes left here on the show, but the tough part is just we're fans, and when we see these guys out there on the road, we want to stop and talk to them. But I hear from athletes I've had on the show before is that they don't mind if you stop them. It's just when they're at dinner is when they don't like it the most, because that's kind of their private time, whether they're with a friend or a family or something else. So you being around so many different athletes, was there any moment that you can recall that someone may have approached them, and it might have just been, wrong time, wrong timing, nothing bad obviously happening, but it's just one of those moments where they just want to be left alone?
Of course. I mean, a lot of them are like that. When they, with their kids, or when they're watching a game, watching their kids play. Like you said, when they eat, just when they talking to somebody. Um, when we work with Nike, we learn not to bother those guys, not to take pictures with them, a lot, unless they, it's like it was picture time. It was like it was photo section time. Other than that, we didn't pull our camera out and say, "Hey, selfie," or "Hey, sign this for my buddy," and stuff like that. And I got a great story to tell you, because I know we run out of time. But I tell you what, Angel, I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to promote the Holding Court Basketball podcast. I mean, it's going to be phenomenal. Coming on, like you said, Saturday, August the 26th. My boy Luther Riley and I, along, we got a pretty young thing on there called Coach Max. She's coming on to do her thing, and we're gonna be giving the business to everybody that we know what's going on in basketball. We're gonna give an update. We got hot topics. We're gonna have interviews. We're gonna have things about food, nourishment. We're gonna have drills. We're just gonna have a whole lot of things. So we want people to tune in on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and get with us on Holding Court, the basketball podcast for basketball fans.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there right now. I'm going to be the number one fan, the first one that that actually wants to hear not only the show, because with
still
your
there?
entertainment, and I'm pretty sure, Luther Riley's going to be just as entertaining, but again, because it's stories. For those who love basketball, I mean, there's stories that can be said over and over again, because it's drama. There's comedies, obviously, when these guys flop all over the court, kind of on purpose and not on purpose. But it's just basketball has changed so much, and it continues to evolve as time comes around. I mean, who would have thought the Denver Nuggets obviously would have won an NBA
You still
championship?
there?
Actually, yep, I'm still here. But
I
you know,
hear something.
you may end up refreshing your screen and you'll end up coming back on. But I'm still here in case we lost you. Ron Briscoe on with us, so hopefully his camera and his audio will come back on. But very entertaining as far as with Mr. Briscoe with us tonight, as we talked about Kevin Durant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and there's still more stories to come. So we shall be back hopefully next week again with Ron, depending on what his schedule looks like. But don't forget, as you guys said, and I'm waiting for his audio to be straightened out here a little bit, but as he talked about, Hold in Court, HOLD, the letter N court.com. So you guys can tune in. That will be on Saturday morning with him and Luther Riley. So you guys will make sure you want to check that out so you don't miss that opportunity as well. And then we'll have Ron back in here. Next week, we'll have a call in line. So you guys have any questions, and you can always email us. You can go right to the website at broadstsouth.com. Once again, broadstsouth.com. Submit your question, and I'll make sure that Ron gets it so the next time he's on with us, that he can answer any questions that you guys may have. But I appreciate everyone who tuned in tonight on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Also over on AMP Radio. We do appreciate it as well on broadstsouth.com. And of course, over on YouTube. So many ways you can catch a show. So we'll be back here once again next week. And actually, we'll be on tomorrow night as well. If you guys want to tune in tomorrow night, that will be a whole different show. That will be about steroids. So if you guys want to check out that show, that is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And you guys can see it on broadstsouth.com. I can see Ron pop back in. Ron, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. I don't know what happened. I guess I lost you on your link because I still had an internet link over here.
Yeah. And listen, when you go live, things happen. That's what we talked about beforehand. It's just when live happens, things happen. So thankfully I didn't lose you all together. But I mentioned, of course, again, your show coming up 9 o'clock on this Saturday. I'm honored, by the way, just to let you know that I was able to have the premiere to say Holden Court as well, because I'm so looking forward to it. I wish Saturday was already here because I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, man, just come on in, man. And if you got a question or if you want to, come on the show, man, just let us know, man. We'll get you on, man. We'll let you hang out with us.
Right. I appreciate it because if it's as much fun as we had tonight, and we're into a little bit of bonus time here, but I can't wait because I'm pretty sure as the fans get to hear the replay, and if they didn't watch us here live tonight, when we get to hear the replay, they can submit their questions over on the website, and I'll make sure that you get them so that the next time we come on, because like I said to everyone who's tuned in tonight, the time flew by this evening. And the reason why is because Ron has so many different stories. And like I said, it's not even the tip of the iceberg yet. So there are so many things that we still have to get to. You guys next week, if you tune in and if Ron has some availability, we'll make sure that everybody's questions are answered. But listen, Mr. Briscoe, thank you once again for joining me this evening. I really do appreciate it. And it's been a true honor, sir.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine, man. I enjoyed it. And you know what? Let's do it again.
Sounds great to me. I'm definitely on it. So we'll make sure we'll let you guys know. Pay attention to social medias. Once again, you guys can tune in the next time, so you'll be able to see it on Instagram, Twitter, of course. And you can visit all the social websites on broadstsouth.com. Also like to thank Philly Sports Trips and phillysportstrips.com. If you guys want to travel with the pros, travel with the best, go to phillysportstrips.com. Therefore, you can see all the trips. If you guys live in the Philly area or a Philly fan, you guys can see where the team is going to be traveling as the Eagle season is about to start here soon. Also, for Tampa Joe's and tampajoes.com, you guys can visit the restaurant right at 9316 Anderson Road in beautiful Tampa, Florida. Also, to penguinpretzels.com. Taste the delicious pretzels that they have. You guys can stop by from 11 to 3 on the to-go window and pick up all those great things. That's if you live here in Newport Richey, Florida. I'm over in Tampa, but if you guys are in the Newport Richey area or in the Tampa Bay area, please visit penguinpretzels.com. And also, thank you to all the listeners who listen to us here stateside, overseas, and all over the world. We do appreciate it, and we can't do it without you. So with that being said, thank you once again to Ron, for my lovely producer over on Studio B, and for everyone tuning in tonight. We do appreciate it, and we will see you guys again tomorrow night. Enjoy your night, and we will see you next time.
See you later, brother.